What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the No Huddle Show, our Philadelphia Eagles podcast for NJ.com. This is Cayden Steele, and joining me, as always, will be my co host, Bob Brookover. We're about 2 weeks into training camp now, or 2 weeks to be exact, actually, and a lot of stuff has happened, including on Monday night with the big trade for Jakorian Bennett. We'll break down all those things today. But first, this episode is brought to you by Penco Tech. With two convenient campuses in Blackwood, New Jersey and in Bristol, Pennsylvania, Penco Tech has provided comprehensive hands-on career training for more than 50 years, featuring programs in HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and automotive technology and more. With dedicated instructors and career placement assistants, Penco Tech can give you the skills and confidence to build a brighter future. Financial aid is available to those who qualify. Learn more and take the first step by going to pencotech.edu. First thing that we have to talk about today, Bob, is the trade that happened Monday night. It's 2 days since it's passed. The Eagles traded for Raiders cornerback Jakorian Bennett. In exchange, they sent Thomas Booker to the Raiders. Uh, it has some big implications here. Starting out with Monday morning when Vic Fangio said the competition is close between uh, Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson at cornerback two opposite of Quinn and Mitchell. But at the same time, really meant that no one's separated from each other in that battle. The Eagles go out and they make a trade for a guy that has 11 career starts in Jakorian Bennett, who played fairly well in his second season in the NFL. It was cut short. He only played 10 games because of a shoulder injury, missed the final 7 weeks. But when he was out there, he was arguably the Raiders' best corner. He looked like a a young, promising player that was heading in the right direction. Obviously, there's worries about the injury. It's a small sample size. He's undersized. He's not the perfect cornerback, and in any way, but he has played well. He is a really good athlete, and they make a trade at a position that is a little unsettled. Bob, just what's your general takeaway on why they made this move and what does it mean for the guys who are competing for the number two job right now in Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson?
Yeah, I'm not of the opinion that it's all that big of a deal. I think they needed some depth at cornerback. They lost Slay last year. They lost Isaiah Rogers. Um, so those are two guys that were integral parts of the whole operation. Um, but Jakorian Bennett's he's a third year player, so he's got a chance to ascend as a player. But what he's done so far in the NFL hasn't excited me all that much. He's playing for yes, he's had 11 starts, but with a really bad team. Uh, Team I have an organization that just I have very little respect for. Whereas Thomas Booker um, didn't really probably wasn't going to make much of an impact. Yes, he was on the Super Bowl team last year, and he did a decent job for the time he was in there. But but they have depth there at defensive tackle more so than they did at cornerback. I see Bennett coming in as a depth piece more than a. I know some people think he's coming in and he's going to challenge Ringo and Adoree Jackson for this starting job. I don't see that happening. Uh, I don't. I just disagree with people that Vic is all that uh, unsettled with what he's seeing from Adoree and Ringo. Um, if to me if he was really unsettled, the thing we would be seeing in training camp would be more of Cooper DeJean running outside cornerback um, when he wasn't in the slot. So I still think this race is between Ringo and Adoree Jackson, with Jakorian Bennett coming in as a guy they want to kind of develop and see what he can do. But maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. He's up against it in terms of coming in the middle of camp. He's still got time, but we'll see. I'll be surprised when the Eagles open the season on September 4th against the Cowboys, if Jakorian Bennett's the guy starting at outside cornerback.
It's good you brought up that point because I think I'm on the other side of the opinion. Uh, I don't think they make this trade if they're happy with the corner situation. There's no guarantee that Jakorian Bennett is going to come in here and win the job, like you said, Bob. Because I mean, he only has 3 weeks to learn this defense, so it is a little bit of a learning curve. But from my perspective, I don't think Keely Ringo has taken that next step from last year, compared to this year. I don't see much of a difference. He's still the same, unique, physically gifted athlete, and you think the upside is there potentially, but some of the technical stuff where he's not making plays on the ball, even though he was close yesterday and he dropped the interception and accidentally knocked over the ref, and that was a little bit of a scary situation. But in general, just some of the stuff where he doesn't turn his head when all, he's late and he's not able to rip out a pass even though he's in the right position, or just some of the little technique stuff I don't think Keely Ringo has gotten much better at. And to me, Adoree Jackson, I mean, maybe Vic was trying to push him, but I don't think they necessarily love him either. And I don't think both players have played terrible necessarily, but I don't think they've played good either. And Jakorian Bennett, although is a little bit of a gamble, and he's still, he's not a sure thing. Uh, he showed a lot of upside last year as a starter. He was pretty good for the Raiders. Everything from what I've read, it seems like he put together a really strong season, albeit on a bad defense. But there seems to be something there, and he is a pretty good athlete. He ran a 4.3 at the 40 at the combine when he was coming out. Uh, to me, he's an interesting player that has a chance to really get in the mix here. And the thing that holds me up as well is like from a depth perspective, I actually feel like they're fine. Like I mean, like Mac McWilliams, I think showed a lot of promise. I think Eli Ricks is a player that it's not perfect, but he could be a solid backup. And I mean, Adoree Jackson could be your backup if Keely Ringo is your starter, and I think you would be fine there. For that reason, I think it's more to do with the fact that they're not sure whether Keely Ringo or Adoree Jackson is a starter, or they're not confident in those guys, at least not yet, and they want to bring another guy to at least push them and see maybe if Jakorian Bennett can start. And then the Cooper DeJean thing, I see your perspective on that. I guess the only thing is Vic's really stubborn in the fact that he's always wanted to play him in the nickel, hasn't really wanted to move him. Even though I do think Cooper could play on the outside, I just don't think that's something Vic wants to do. He really likes him in that nickel safety role. That's where he feels his strength is, and I don't think Vic would even move off of that, even if he wasn't confident in that position, just because he doesn't want to do it because that's where he believes Cooper plays best.
Yeah, but he has been willing to play him some at safety, and
Yes.
so that tells me he's willing to do that. I don't know. Um, People can put whatever value they want in Pro Football Focus. I put some value in it because there's somebody watching these guys play, and every game, and they're spending some time doing it. And there's players who agree and disagree. Usually, they agree if they're grading out well on Pro Football Focus. But it's people who know the game and are watching the game. Now they don't always know the scheme or what somebody's supposed to be doing on a particular play. You can't always tell that by watching film.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, Jakorian Bennett was 85th last year among cornerbacks. Keely Ringo didn't I don't think had enough snaps. He didn't have enough snaps to grade out, but he was a 65.8 grade compared to Jakorian Bennett was 85th with a grade of, I tell you in 2 seconds, of 58.6. And his coverage grade was, his run defense was 42.2, which that's going to be an issue with Vic, I think, right there. If he's not good in run support, you're going to have a hard time getting on into a Vic defense. His pass grade was 61. And then Adoree Jackson rated higher than all of them. I mean, Adoree Jackson graded out very well, basically playing the same amount of games as Adoree played 426 snaps last year. His final grade was 69 with a 64.5 coverage grade. And how many snaps did Bennett play? Bennett played 459, so they played very similar number of snaps. Achilles, the most unproven of the two, hasn't really played a lot of snaps in either of his first two seasons. Part of that was he's playing behind really good cornerbacks, so it's hard to blame him for that. But whatever stock you take in it, that's what Pro Football Focus is saying about the three guys.
I'll bring up just to bring up another viewpoint on a stat. There's a graphic that I found on Twitter the other night, and the source is from PFF, and it's man versus zone yards per coverage snap, which basically just and it grades out who gave the least amount of yards up against zone, and it's like a graph. And funny enough, Adoree Jackson is high up on that list as well, but Jakorian Bennett is right above Adoree Jackson on that list. So at least in terms of what Vic likes to do, and they run a lot of zone, it seems Jakorian Bennett thrives at that. I wonder if did Vic like his tape coming out, or is it a combination of Vic liking him, seeing him before, and how he liked him as well? I'm curious who really wanted Jakorian Bennett, and I'm interested when we get to talk to Vic what he thinks of him. But he was pretty good in zone coverage last year, and overall, I mean, the PFF grade is not amazing, but he only gave up 18 catches for 176 yards and gave up 0 touchdowns and 294 coverage snaps. So that area, at least in coverage, is pretty impressive. The numbers look good. I agree with the run defense. I mean, the fact that he's a smaller corner, I mean, a little undersized, 5'11", 195, and that's part of the reason it seems like Raiders reporters think, he fell out of favor. Pete Carroll likes longer, 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", like just long, athletic cornerbacks that are taller, and Jakorian Bennett doesn't fit that mold. But the size and the shoulder injuries, and there's definitely some red flags, but it seems like at least when it comes to just zone coverage, he's been pretty well. I was watching some clips the other night from people, this guy from The Athletic, I forget his name, I should recall it, but he breaks down film. He had some clips of, Jakorian Bennett against Jamar Chase, where he won some reps. So it seems like he's a player with some promise, but he's not a finished product for sure. And it's more of a, he's shown some upside in 10 games, but in terms of his complete picture as an NFL player, it's only been, really 10 games of success. He actually really struggled as a rookie with the Raiders. So he's a fascinating player. I don't think he's guaranteed.
One of the other fascinating aspects of the whole thing is in the 22 draft, he was number 104 overall, and one pick later was Keely Ringo at 105. So that's another intrigue to the whole thing.
Yeah, it is intrigue. Obviously, the Eagles took Keely, but I mean,
well, they didn't have a chance to take Bennett. So
yeah.
I used to listen to people's angry Phillies fans talk about how, well, the Phillies didn't take Mike Trout. Well, they never had a chance to take him, so that's why they didn't take him.
I am. Here's the other angle I can see, because I'm not giving up on Keeler. I don't think he's had a great camp, but if this hurts someone the most, and I wrote about this in my 53-man roster projection, and it's a simple theory. This is not like sourcing or anything. Adoree Jackson could well make this team, but I think that Jakorian Bennett could be the player that knocks off Adoree Jackson potentially, because now you have another corner in the room. I don't think Mac McWilliams is going anywhere. He's had a really good camp. They seem to like him.
He's not getting cut.
Eli Ricks played good in 2023. They've invested a good amount in him as an undrafted free agent. He's been a pretty productive special teams player as well. Adoree hasn't played a ton of special teams recently because he's been a star in the NFL. I just think Adoree might be the odd man out, and maybe Keely wins the job still. I'm not feeling confident in that, but maybe Keely wins the job. Jakorian Bennett plays the Isaiah Rodgers, role as the dime corner, and then that leaves potentially, a battle between Eli Ricks and Adoree Jackson. And then in my predictions, I went with Eli Ricks because the fact he's made the roster the last 2 years, he's a younger player with more theoretical upside than Adoree Jackson. And if he could play special teams better than Adoree, I'm just not sure where Adoree is fitting into this picture if he doesn't win the starting job. And of the three corners now, I agree that Ringo still has a decent chance, but I think Bennett will challenge Ringo. I think this is bad news for Adoree Jackson the most.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Eli Ricks was a staple on special teams last year. Though
No.
he played 51 special team snaps. There was only three of the 17 games where he played double digits, even in special team snaps. So it's not like I don't think they're sky high on Eli Ricks all of a sudden. I do agree with um, the assessment that if Keely Ringo wins the job, that maybe Adoree is out of here because uh, at that point you kind of worry. Veterans often, if they're not going to make a team or going to be a starter on the team and feel like they can do that somewhere else, often times don't want to be around. Case in point, I think that's what we saw with uh, who am I?
Are you
The
thinking of
linebacker last year.
Devin
What?
White? Yeah, Devin
Devin
White.
White. I'm sorry. I was going to say Devin Williams, and I know it wasn't Devin Williams. Devin White last year. That's what we saw with Devin White last year. He didn't want to be here anymore once he had lost the starting competition to Kobe Dean. He had wanted no parts of being around here. Um, so uh, so I could see that scenario playing out, even with it not even going into the regular season, where if Keely wins the job, they say that let's just have a clean break from Adoree.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe they'll. I Going with five corners would be a little late, but they could go with five if they really like Bennett and they feel comfortable.
Well, and they can do that. Well, they can do that because of and it was the same thing at safety last year. I think they went pretty late at safety last year. You can do that because of Cooper's versatility.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe you release both Adoree and Eli.
And supposedly Makuba has that some flexibility there too. So,
Mhm.
although we haven't really seen him in the slot too much in training
No,
camp, I don't know if at all if we have.
and McWilliams played outside corner
Right,
at Central Florida. And I know he's been mainly a nickel in camp, but if you
right.
feel like you can get by, maybe Adoree and Eli gets released. Either way, I think it's bad news for Adoree. Not as bad for Keely, but it's going to be 3 weeks, and I do think Keely is going to be pushed by Jakorian Bennett, and I don't think they're just going to hand Jakorian Bennett the job, but they're going to give him a fair shake, I think, and we'll see. I mean, if he can transfer his play over from what he showed last year, I mean, he's a more proven player than Keely. Obviously, Keely was stuck behind Slay, and then Eugene and Mitchell came in last year, so it's not really fair to compare necessarily. But I mean, Jakorian Bennett's proved that he can be a solid starter. Obviously, he's got to clean up the run defense, like you mentioned, Bob, and that's an area if he struggles, it's hard to see the field if he can't tackle. So I'm curious, if he gets to play some preseason games, how that looks. But this whole cornerback situation has been the most fascinating in camp of all the battles. Partly because Makuba got hurt and he's just returning now, but it's been so fun to watch. Now, to me, at least it makes it even more interesting over these next couple of weeks and uh, over these preseason games that we're going to see and see who stands out and who separates from the pack. That first preseason game will be on Thursday against the Bengals at Lincoln Financial Field. We'll see how much Adoree Jackson and Keely Ringo play. I am curious to see if they, maybe they go for a couple series, maybe they go for a quarter. Who knows? The Bengals will be playing their starters, at least for a couple series. It looks like with Joe Burrow. What's some of the things that you are most interested in watching on Thursday night when the Eagles play the Bengals?
I'm guessing that Adoree and Keely might be the starters that start opposite each other because we're not. I don't. Well, I don't know. I don't know what to predict really with Vic.
Mm-hmm.
He did put the starters out there last year. Some of them, like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, I think only played one series. And then others, Kobe, I remember being in there, who at the time was competing for a starting job. he started,
Mm-hmm.
and some others started last year. And Quinion obviously did last year, but he was a rookie. Um, some others didn't. I'm curious to see that. Offensively, I don't think we're going to see a single starter on the field. Last year, the one guy we did see on opening day was Mekhi Becton, but at that time he was competing for a job with Tyler Steen. After that, I think he wanted that night, because after that we didn't see him again the rest of the preseason. We haven't seen Jalen Hurts since 22 started a game. He started the first game of preseason in 22. It led to his best season, and he was a perfect 6 for 6 for 80 yards and a touchdown in that game, with the perfect passer rating 158.3. So maybe they should play him for one series at the start again, uh, just to see if they can duplicate that success. But we're not going to see much on offense. Defensively, yeah, we're gonna see those. I think we're gonna see those guys on the field for at least a quarter, to be honest with you, because they are in a competition. So we're gonna see those guys. We're not gonna see much of the defensive tackles who are gonna we're gonna see a lot of Gabe Hall.
Mm-hmm.
The intrigue. There's become some real intrigue with the backup edge rusher. Who's going to be in this edge rushing rotation? Let's put it that way. With Aziz Ojulari, Josh Uche. Um, you know, I can't pronounce his name. Agbo, I'm going to call him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. Who came from Cleveland right at the start of training camp? Who's a veteran with some. Those are the three guys trying to get into this mix. It'll be interesting to see how much we see Jihad Campbell. I do think we'll see Jihad and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. as the starters in this game. And we'll see lots of Smile Monda, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm really looking forward to seeing the defensive side of the ball. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I am, the Eagles have taken a little bit of a gamble by going with Tanner McKee as a inexperienced guy who really got a very small sample size of. He's had success, but it's a very, very tiny sample size of success, and it's a little risky, especially a lot of playoff teams and good teams want more veteran guys in there. In case something happens, and case in point, 2017 Eagles wrote a backup quarterback to a Super Bowl title. There's not many of those stories, but there are a few. So there's a lot of guys I want to see here, and we're going to see quite a few on defense, like Sidney Brown's another guy I think we'll see, and Makuba. So we're going to we don't know who's starting at these positions yet, but we know we probably I think we might not see we might see that he might do what he did last year against the Ravens, play the guys he knows he's going to count on, and our starters like Reed, Jalen. Although I'm going to say no with Jalen because he's had a shoulder injury at the start of this camp. But some of those guys, like one series, just to get him out there, and then. But there's enough guys and enough competition that we're going to see a bunch of guys who could have a real impact on this defense getting on the field. So that it's going to be really fun to watch the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I know it's preseason.
It's especially going to be true if as the Bengals say and stick to it. If Zach Taylor sticks to it and plays Joe Burrow and the offensive starters and the defensive starters for that matter, they're supposed to, according to Taylor, are going to play a few series. Is how I think he put it. I don't think we're going to see him a very long time, but even that first early series to see McKee have to go against them and the backups, and then to see the Eagles defense go against the Bengals. I'm sorry I interrupted you there.
No. I mean, you're getting me pumped up. I know it's just preseason, but I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited for this game. This is a fun time of the year where, we're not going to be taking any long-term takeaways from this game about how the team's going to be this year, but just the rookies, the young players, like you mentioned, starting with Jihad Campbell. I've seen flashes in camp, and obviously they're speeding up his learning curve, and they're throwing a lot at him on his plate, and I'm excited to see how they use him. what he looks like as a linebacker, where he's at his best right now, and that's his strength, as an off-ball linebacker. But also, does he line up at edge a few times in preseason? I know Vic said, really, frankly, he's not really ready. Basically, what Vic said. I mean, he's got a lot of work, but does he play some edge rusher in the game? It's a perfect time to get those reps, and you don't have to, be amazing at it in a preseason game. Just play around and experiment a little bit. I'm just very excited to watch Jahad Campbell. I think he's going to be a fantastic football player. But also, I mean, we talked about the linebackers last week. We've got to talk about him again this week because Smile London keeps playing really good. And this might sound like a crazy statement, and I'm not saying Smile London's going to be a better player than Jahad Campbell in the NFL. I've been more impressed by Smile London in training camp, though. I think he's had a better training camp. His ability to cover Saquon Barkley on some of those routes yesterday, also last week on that one wheel route, he's played really good against the run, and he's just so fast. I think he gets to his spot where he needs to be in like a split second. It doesn't seem like it's been a big adjustment for him. Smile London looks like a really good player. So does Jahad Campbell. So does Jeremiah Trotter. I mean, the linebackers are going to be extremely fun to watch. And then going to the corners, like you talked about, Bob. I mean, this is a perfect opportunity for Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson because if they do go a couple series against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, especially for Keely. I mean, let's see what type of corner you are. I mean, it's a tough test. A lot of corners are going to get beat by those guys, but I'm curious how he is able to handle some of those one-on-ones if he gets them, and how he looks. I feel like it will be a little bit of a measuring stick if he could just hold his own just enough. He's not going to win every rep, but if he shows something there, I'll have more confidence in Keely. And then just overall for the defense, there's a lot of guys to be excited about. I do think this is also a big game for Sidney Brown. Uh, right now, Makuba doesn't seem like he's going to play. At least Vic said that he doesn't think he's going to be out there. But next week in those joint practices against Cleveland, if Makuba starts playing really well, he could overtake Sidney Brown. By the end of training camp, be the starter in week one. Because although Sidney, I think, hasn't been bad in training camp, he hasn't made a ton of plays. This is an opportunity for him to show, that he can be, a little bit of a difference maker. I think he's been steady, but I want to see him make some plays from safety, um, and just see how he tackles. See if he's more of a clean tackler than he was in the past, and see how he does in coverage. I'm excited for Sidney Brown, and then offensively, uh, I'm excited for the wide receiver depth and how that's going to look. I think that's just so up in the air right now with, Johnny Wilson and Nye Smith not really taking hold. And I'm sure the Eagles wanted them to be the guys, but then you got Elijah Cooks and Darius Cooper. I'm probably way too excited for a preseason game. I feel my energy racing through the roof. Maybe I didn't expect to be this excited, but there's a lot to look forward to, especially these young guys and just some of the underrated players, the undrafted guys. This is such a good opportunity. Is there any one of these guys that you've seen Camp Bob, one of these like young undrafted players, second year guys that you think is a candidate just to have one of those like absurd preseason games? Doesn't mean he's going to make the roster or anything like that, but he could be a preseason darling starting against the Bengals.
Yeah, he's already been in the league a little bit, and so, but he's an unknown. But he's actually 27 years old already. I didn't realize he's that old, or 20. He's about to be 27 in October. Uh, just because of the camp he's had, I think I'm eager to see if Elijah Cooks pushes for a job here because
Mm-hmm.
he's had such a good camp. He finished yesterday. First a touchdown catch. He muscled his way away from Eli Ricks. Basically won a contested ball, and then the very next play he scored on a 2-point conversion. And he's flashed all of camp. So he's a guy. He's not but he doesn't necessarily fit that rookie mold or the undrafted mold that you're talking about.
He would still
He,
count as a camp darling though, and it's interesting that you bring that up, Bob. I did not realize he was that old. I was thinking, third year in the league, 24 maybe. I didn't
right.
look up his age. I mean, makes sense. He was in college for a long time. Looking at it, but that's fascinating that he's already almost 27.
A guy. Go ahead.
It doesn't change how I feel about how he's played or the role that he could have, because I agree with you. He's the best wide receiver for on this team this summer. He said, when he talked to the media last week, he wanted to make a play a day. He has made a play a day. And it's not just the acrobatic catches that he had at the beginning of camp. It's also the fact that he's 6'4" and he moves pretty well. Like, he's a better route runner than I anticipated. Um, Elijah Cooks off merit. I mean, he's got to do it in the preseason games as well, but he's been the best wide receiver for on the team this summer. And you can make an argument Darius Cooper has been the fifth best wide receiver, but that's besides the point. I'm excited to watch Elijah Cooks too.
Yeah, here's why he's 26. He spent 6 years in college. He played 5 years at Nevada and then one more year at San Jose State. So that's why he's gotten so old. Before at this point in his career. As far as younger guys go, some of these younger offensive linemen, Miles Hinton.
Mm-hmm.
I'm anxious to see him. Eager to see him. Drew Kendall. I'm eager to see him. Williams at tackle. I'm eager to see Cam Williams at tackle. So some of those guys on that side of the ball, and obviously, you know, they're all unheralded because they're offensive linemen. The one guy who I haven't seen flash at all in camp, and I'm eager to see if he gets on the field and maybe he gets more noticed, because it's a hard position to get noticed at if you're, if you because of the nature of the position, you're not allowed to hit anybody, you're not allowed to hit the quarterback. But Antoine Powell Ryland really hasn't flashed much at all in this camp. Eager to see if that changes in the preseason.
I like the Miles Hinton pick, and this is way too early because I haven't seen him play yet. But the fact that Jeff Stoutland likes him, I mean, I asked Jeff Stoutland last week what he saw out of Miles Hinton and Cameron Williams. He spent, a good 30 to 40 seconds talking about how much, Miles Hinton impressed him with just his physical ability, and then pretty much saying, once the light turns on, he thinks he could be anyone that he wants to be. Uh, he just raved about Miles Hinton. You could just tell by the way he talked about him, his facial reaction and everything. And then at the end, he said, and Cameron Williams could do that too. But it seems like Jeff Stoutland's pretty high on Miles Hinton. He's been getting second team reps over Cameron Williams. Cameron Williams started to get a little bit the other day. But Miles Hinton's in some of those one-on-ones. He's been a little up and down, but he's shown me some potential. I mean, and he's got the size. He has everything you want. Obviously, his father was a great offensive tackle in the NFL. I'm curious how he looks, in his first NFL action. And he's an intriguing developmental player. I'm not predicting this, but I mean, Lane Johnson's going to be here for a few more years. You at least think he's still playing on an All-Pro level. Maybe they find another, gem on day 3. Miles Hinton's obviously different story than Jordan Mailata, but I mean, if he ends up being a starter, that'll be another great success story. So I am maybe a little bit irrationally excited about Miles Hinton as well. And Drew Kendall has played well in training camp. Other than the one bad snap last Friday, I thought he's put together a pretty solid training camp. He seems rock steady. So both of those guys I'm excited for. And then offensively, I can't quit the short running back that is 5'7" and looks fast. I mean, I think I just have just an inclination to like those type of players because they're fun. They're a little bit of an underdog story, but I mean, Shonderick Powell isn't just a feel good story. I think he can actually play. I mean, he's flashed. Yes, it's been against 2s and 3s, mainly 3s, but I mean, he's breaking some long runs. For different sides of the field. He's also breaking some long runs up the middle. He's so small and he's kind of tough to see. He's got that Boston Scott-esque ability where he can run behind the line and sneak between holes and do a little bit more. After do a little bit more than you would expect a guy his size to be able to do. And then he's also pretty good running through contact for his size. I mean, he caught a screen the other day. And he went right up the sideline, had a one-on-one with linebacker Dallas, and he ran right through his tackle. So he's got some low center of gravity. I'm excited for Shonderick Powell. I think he's got some upside. I don't think he probably makes the roster, but interesting practice squad candidate for sure. And then Darius Cooper as well as another guy. I've been more impressed with him than Anais Smith and Johnny Wilson. Similar to Elijah Cooks, Darius Cooper's made a play a day. I mean, it's been one play a day where it's been pretty impressive. He's very explosive after the catch, and he's gotten consistently open, especially going against threes and twos. And I've seen a lot of upside from Darius Cooper. So Darius Cooper and Derek Powell, some of these undrafted guys, I'm very excited for. And then on defense, I would agree with you, Bob. I haven't seen anything from Antoine Power Island, so I want to see what he brings to the table because I don't know what he is. It's tough to judge your practice, but it is interesting that he hasn't done much. And then I am fascinated to see Mac McWilliams because I think he's been really good in camp. And then he got the injury, but I want to see does he mainly just play nickel or they put him on the outside a little bit as well. But I mean this is exciting, right, Bob? Football's back. I mean it's preseason, yes, but I'm excited to see a lot of these different players out there. Uh, and I'm curious, how this roster unfolds. They're gonna have some tough decisions. It is a deep roster, and these games will decide it. Is there anything else that you're just excited for? Are you excited for the preseason game or?
The one thing no, I'm not excited for preseason
Oh,
games.
come on.
I'm not. I am because that'll be number one of 20, at least 20 crossed off the list. I am not Merrill Reese and get excited about seeing the threes versus the threes. But but the one guy I am eager to see for the first time in an NFL game is Kyle McCord,
Mhm.
State Joe's prep kid who's from South Jersey. So I'm eager to see what he looks like his first time out there. Be interesting to see how Nick plays the quarterbacks, like how much he gives Tanner. I imagine he'll probably give him the first half, and then the way things have looked in camp, uh, Thompson Robinson will probably get the third quarter, and McCord will get the fourth quarter. Is the way things have seemed to run in camp. So I'm interested to see Kyle get his first chance to play in an NFL game.
Yeah, and it would be interesting. To me, he he hasn't got a lot of reps, so it's tough to judge. He hasn't really stood out in a bad or negative
Yeah,
way.
there's so few reps for those
Yeah,
guys that it's really hard to. So he's had some nice throws, but it's really hard to evaluate those guys in a camp like this.
but it was the same way with McKee 2 years ago, right? He wasn't getting as many reps in practice. He went out in the preseason and he balled out, and that was the first sign that there might be something there. So maybe we'll see that from Kyle McCord as well. There's no way, in my opinion, that Dorian Thompson Robinson makes it over him. Even though I think DTR honestly might have been a little more consistent so far than McCord, but he's been in the NFL for 2 years, so it's not like a complete surprise. But I think Kyle McCord has a roster spot. I'm not gonna say he's a lock, but I think he'll be here, and it's he has the chance to maybe be the backup as soon as next season, depending on what Tanner McKee shows in preseason and limited opportunities maybe during the season if Jalen Hurts sits out, week 18 again, or if he gets hurt. Kyle McCord is definitely interesting. Uh, and just generally, they're not young guys, but I mean, this game, and you talked about it earlier, Bob, it has so much impact potentially on this edge rush group. I want to see what Azeez Ojulari looks like in a game. Practice wise, I haven't seen too much, but I would still like to believe the former Giants pass rusher that was a guy that probably could have been a double digit sack guy if he stayed healthy is completely gone and it's not the same player anymore. I still would like to believe that there's something there, even though I haven't seen it in practice. And then Josh Uche and Powell Ryland, and they have so many options in that room, but I'm not sure if I feel great about any of them. Like I feel best about Uche right now because he's flashed a little bit as a speed rusher and also as a power rusher a little bit the other day when he knocked over Kendall Lamb. So he's been the best one in my opinion. And he's the only one I feel really good about as a backup right now. And that's a concern, but my eyes will be on that group for sure on Thursday.
Yep, that's definitely a big spot to be watching for.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot just generally to watch out for. We got this game, and then next week will be joint practices. So a lot of a lot of opportunities to see how things shake out when it comes to the roster, and see who stock rises, who stock falls. It's going to be really fun to watch everything. Bob, do you have any just final thoughts or anything that you're just looking forward to? I mean, I know you say you're not excited for the preseason game, but is there anything that you want to touch on before we wrap up today?
Yeah, let's just go play football. It's time. I'm just glad we're, you get to the point in it's every sport a training camp. After a while you get tired of watching them. The ones go against the ones, and the twos against the twos, and the three against the threes. And I know Nick Sirianni does the competitions, but after a while, it becomes a little tedious, we should say, and the games break that up a little bit. I'm looking forward to September 4th getting to the start of the season. I
Mhm.
always am much more pumped up when we get into the season than just the preseason. But it's a process, and this is the second step of the process. We're full bore into training camp now. Let's start playing some preseason games, seeing what some guys can do, and then we go from there.
Yeah, I agree with you though. If we could skip the preseason, and go right to week 1 versus the Cowboys, I would do that in a heartbeat. I think my excitement, in all reality, preseason football isn't fun to watch always because it could be sloppy. It's a lot of third stringers, guys that aren't going to be on the roster, but that the football, uh, I've been deprived of football, so I think that's where this is coming from. It's something. It's better than nothing. It's going to be tackling to the ground, which we haven't seen much of in training camp, other than the live period with the threes the other day. I'm excited just for to see how the young players play, and just generally that we have a football game. And yes, it's not the regular season, but it'll be interesting to watch. We'll be back next week after joint practices. We'll probably do a pod. That'll be another big step in training camp to see how the players perform. But thanks for everyone for tuning in. As always, we really appreciate it. Make sure to keep reading our written content on NJ.com. We'll have more stories coming this week from the preseason game, from practices. And we'll catch you next time. Thank you very much. Everyone have a good day.